Welcome, my friend. Imagine a man, a very old man, brilliant and a little wild, running through the streets of an ancient city, barefoot, dripping wet, not caring one bit about what anyone thinks, shouting a single word at the top of his lungs. Eureka! He had just stepped into a bath, and in that one ordinary moment, the warm water rising around him, he had seen something that no one in the history of the world had ever clearly seen before. Tonight, I am going to tell you that story, the full story, not just the bath, not just the shouting, but the man, the island, the king who gave him an impossible problem, and the question that has been waiting inside that bathtub for 2,000 years. Make yourself comfortable, my friend. I am so glad you found your way here tonight. Wherever you are right now, whether you are tucked beneath a soft blanket lying in the dark with tired eyes, or simply resting after a long and heavy day, I want you to know you are exactly where you need to be. My name is Dede, and tonight I am going to take you somewhere, not far, in miles, but very, very far, in time. But first, let us breathe together for a moment. Take a slow breath in, hold it gently, and let it go. And again, breathe in and out. Feel the weight of this day beginning to soften. Feel your shoulders drop just a little. Maybe your hands uncurl. Maybe your jaw releases something it has been holding since morning. That is it. There is nothing left to do tonight, nothing to solve, nothing to carry. Tonight, you are simply here, listening, resting. Close your eyes whenever you feel ready. There is no hurry. Now, I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine a night sky without any city lights, no orange glow on the horizon, no street lamps, no screens, just stars. Thousands upon thousands of them scattered like salt across black velvet, each one a quiet, steady flame burning from unimaginable distances away. You are sitting outside. The air is warm but soft, the kind of warmth that a summer night in the Mediterranean carries like a breath exhaled slowly by the sea itself. There is a fire in front of you, small, comfortable, crackling with a gentle rhythm. And beside you, stretched out on the warm earth, is a golden dog. His name is Balım. His chest rises and falls in the deep, easy breath of something that has not a single worry in the world. His fur is warm under your fingers if you reach down to touch him. I am here too, of course, sitting just across the fire from you, an old cup of something warm in my hands, watching the flames dance. The sea is close. You can hear it, not wild tonight, not crashing or angry, just a steady, patient rhythm. In and out, in and out, like the breathing of something ancient and enormous and completely at peace. The smell of salt and cedar is on the air. Somewhere in the dark, an olive tree moves its leaves in the softest breeze you have ever felt. This is where we are tonight, and this is where I will begin to tell you a story, a true story. about a man who lived a very, very long time ago, a man who spent his whole life doing something that most people consider dangerous. He asked questions. The year is approximately 250 years before the Common Era. 2,250 years ago, give or take. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. Let it settle. When this man was alive, the Roman Empire was still young. The Great Wall of China was being built. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest collection of human knowledge ever assembled, was open, its scrolls stacked floor to ceiling, holding the sum total of everything humanity had figured out up until that point. And on a large, sun-warmed island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, a boy was growing up. The island was called Sicily, and the city was called Syracuse. Imagine Syracuse at dusk. The sea turns from blue to gold to deep violet as the sun goes down behind the hills. The harbor is full of ships, wooden boats with dark sails swaying gently at anchor, their ropes creaking in the last of the evening wind. The streets are narrow and warm, paved with pale stone that holds the heat of the day long after the sun has gone. Merchants are closing their stalls, rolling down awnings of rough-woven cloth, stacking amphoras of olive oil, carrying baskets of figs and pomegranates indoors. The smell is extraordinary: salt from the harbor, charcoal from cooking fires, garlic and roasting lamb from somewhere nearby. And underneath it all, the faint, dry sweetness of stone that has been warmed by the sun for thousands of years. The boy's name was Archimedes. His father was an astronomer, a man who spent his evenings on the rooftop watching the stars move across the sky, measuring their positions, making careful marks on papyrus scrolls. From his earliest years, Archimedes grew up in a house full of questions. Why do the stars not fall? Why does the moon change shape? Why does water always find its way downhill? Not every child who grows up in such a house becomes a scientist. Some of them grow tired of questions. They want answers, not more questions. They want certainty, not wonder. But Archimedes was different. The questions delighted him. Each one felt like a door, and behind every door, another corridor, and at the end of every corridor, another door. He loved it. Let Balım shift beside you there. He does that sometimes in his sleep, some dream making his paws twitch gently against the earth. Look up at the stars for a moment. They are the same stars Archimedes looked up at as a boy. Not the same light, that light is long gone, but the same points, the same patterns, the same slow wheel overhead. Breathe in the sea air, and let us follow him a little further. When Archimedes was a young man, he traveled. This was not an easy thing in the ancient world. There were no roads as we know them, no maps you could trust. The sea was the highway of the Mediterranean, and it was beautiful and treacherous in equal measure. But there was a place every serious thinker of that age wanted to go: Alexandria. Imagine a city that existed for the sole purpose of learning, a city where the greatest minds of the known world gathered, argued, wrote, calculated, experimented, and disagreed loudly, over long meals in the cooling evening air. The Library of Alexandria was at its heart. Picture it, a vast colonnaded building near the harbor, its white walls gleaming in the Egyptian sun. Inside, perhaps 700,000 scrolls, histories, plays, mathematical treatises, observations of the stars, medical records, philosophical arguments, poetry from a dozen civilizations. You could walk in off the street and read any of it. Archimedes spent years there. He read everything he could reach. He corresponded with mathematicians across the ancient world, sending long letters full of problems and solutions back and forth on papyrus, carried by ships across the sea. He was interested in everything. The way levers worked, why a small force applied at the right point could move an enormous weight. The mathematics of circles and spheres. He spent years calculating the precise relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter, arriving at a value so close to what we now call pi that it would not be meaningfully improved upon for centuries. The behavior of water, how it filled containers, how it resisted, how it supported things that floated and rejected things that sank. He was not trying to be famous. He was not trying to win prizes or impress kings. He was simply curious. Deeply, hopelessly, irreversibly curious about the way the world worked. Let that wash over you for a moment. The warmth of the fire, the sound of the sea, Balım's quiet breathing beside you. There is something very peaceful about a mind that asks questions simply because it wants to understand, not for reward, not for recognition, just because the question is interesting. When Archimedes returned to Syracuse, he was already a famous man. The king of Syracuse at that time was a man named Hiero, a practical man, a man who liked things he could use. He had heard about this brilliant mathematician who had come home to his island and wanted to put his mind to work. So he gave him a problem. It was not a mathematical problem exactly. It was a more practical kind of puzzle, but it would change the history of science. Hiero had commissioned a goldsmith to make him a crown, a beautiful crown, befitting a king. He had given the goldsmith a precise weight of pure gold, and the goldsmith had returned with a crown of exactly that weight, gleaming and perfectly formed. But Hiero was suspicious. He had heard rumors, whispers in the palace corridors. The goldsmith, it was said, had cheated him. He had taken some of the gold and replaced it with silver, a cheaper metal, and made up the weight difference. The crown looked like pure gold. It weighed the same as the gold he had been given. But was it? Hiero needed to know. There was only one problem. To find out for certain, you would normally melt the crown down and test the metal. But Hiero did not want to melt his crown. It was too beautiful. And so he called for Archimedes. "Find out," he said, "without destroying it." This is the kind of problem that keeps a person awake at night. Archimedes, by all accounts, was obsessed with it. He turned it over in his mind for days, weeks perhaps. Gold and silver, you see, have different densities. A piece of gold and a piece of silver that weigh exactly the same will not take up the same amount of space. The gold will be smaller, more compact, more heavy for its size. But how do you measure the volume of a crown? A crown is not a simple shape like a cube or a sphere. It has spikes and curves and complicated decorations. You cannot calculate its volume with mathematics alone. Unless there is another way. The fire crackles softly. A small wave breaks on the shore below us. Balım exhales slowly in his sleep. And somewhere in the darkness across from you, Archimedes is turning the problem over and over in his mind, like a smooth stone in the palm of a hand. The story that has come down to us through the centuries is this. One evening, after weeks of thinking about this problem, Archimedes went to the public baths. This was a perfectly ordinary thing to do. The public baths in an ancient Greek city were not just for washing. They were social places. You went to relax, to talk, to let the heat soak into your muscles after a long day. He lowered himself into the bath, and he noticed something. As his body sank into the water level rose. Now, this happens every time anyone gets into a bath. It happened to you the last time you had a bath. It has happened to every person who has ever lowered themselves into water since the beginning of human time. But Archimedes looked at it differently. His mind, primed by weeks of thinking about the problem of the crown, made a connection. If his body displaced water, if the amount of water that rose was equal to the volume of his body, then you could measure the volume of anything, no matter how complicated its shape, simply by submerging it in water and measuring how much water it displaced. Put the crown in water. Measure how much the water rises. Do the same with a piece of pure gold that weighs exactly the same as the crown. If the crown is pure gold, both should displace the same amount of water. If the crown contains silver, a less dense metal, taking up more space for the same weight, it will displace more water than the pure gold. The answer had been sitting in every bathtub in the world, in every cup of water, in every harbor and river and puddle. And he had finally seen it. The story says that Archimedes leapt out of the bath, that he ran through the streets of Syracuse, naked and dripping, shouting the Greek word for "I have found it," Eureka. Eureka, in the original Greek. I have found it. Now, whether he truly ran naked through the streets, I cannot say with certainty. Historians argue about this. The story was written down centuries after the event. Perhaps it was embellished. Perhaps it was exactly as dramatic as it sounds. But what I can tell you is this. The principle he discovered in that bath, the principle that a body submerged in fluid displaces a volume of fluid equal to its own volume, is still called Archimedes' principle today. 2,250 years later. It is used in shipbuilding, in engineering, in medicine, in the design of submarines, in the measurement of bone density, in the science of floating and sinking that underlies every vessel that has ever crossed the all of it, from a man noticing something that everyone else had always seen and never truly looked at. Let that settle. The fire is lower now. The stars overhead are brilliant. Balım has rolled onto his side, his great golden flank rising and falling. The sea breathes its patient rhythm. But this is the part of the story I love most. Archimedes did not stop. He solved the problem of the crown. Hero's goldsmith was indeed a cheat. The crown contained silver. But that was almost incidental. What mattered was what he had discovered about the way the world worked. He went home and he kept thinking. He developed the mathematics of buoyancy, the precise calculations that explain why things float or sink. He worked out the principles of the lever with such clarity that he reportedly said, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world." He designed machines for the defense of Syracuse, catapults and cranes and devices that could lift Roman warships out of the harbor by their bows and shake them until the soldiers fell out. He kept working. He kept asking. There is a story that when the Roman general Marcellus finally breached the walls of Syracuse, after a 2-year siege that Archimedes' machines had held at bay almost single-handedly, Marcellus gave strict orders that the old mathematician was not to be harmed. He was too valuable, too singular, too irreplaceable. But a Roman soldier, not knowing who the old man was, found Archimedes sitting in the dirt, drawing geometric figures, still working on a problem. "Don't disturb my circles," Archimedes reportedly said. The soldier, insulted, killed him. Marcellus, it is said, wept. He buried Archimedes with honors and erected a tomb with a sphere inscribed in a cylinder on it, a reference to a mathematical discovery Archimedes had said was his greatest achievement. Centuries later, a young Roman lawyer named Cicero visited Syracuse and went looking for that tomb. He found it, overgrown and forgotten, in a field outside the city. He had it cleared and restored. Even in death, even across centuries, the curiosity of one man could not be entirely buried. People kept finding him, kept coming back to him, kept reading his work and discovering that he had understood things, had seen things clearly, that the rest of the world would not catch up to for 1,000 years or more. And I think the reason for that is simple. Archimedes was not trying to be clever. He was not trying to impress anyone or win anything or prove anything. He was just looking at the world as it actually is, at the way water rises in a bath, at the way a lever pivots on its fulcrum, at the way a sphere fits inside a cylinder with perfect mathematical elegance. He looked at ordinary things with extraordinary attention. And when you do that, when you truly look at the ordinary world around you, not rushing past it, not taking it for granted, but actually seeing it, you find that it is full of secrets, full of connections you had never noticed, full of questions that open onto other questions, full of moments that feel, when you first see them clearly, like running through the streets shouting, I have found it. I have found it. The fire has burned low now, just embers mostly, orange and red, pulsing gently like something breathing. The stars overhead have wheeled a little, the whole sky turning slowly on its axis as it has done every night for longer than human memory. Balım is deeply asleep. You can hear the soft rhythm of his breath. The sea is quiet, just that long, patient pulse, in and out. And you are here, warm, safe. I want you to carry something with you into sleep tonight. Not a lesson, exactly. Not something you have to remember or use. Just a feeling. The feeling that the ordinary world around you is not ordinary at all. The water in a bath, the stars overhead, the way a breath expands the chest and then releases. All of it full of things that someone someday looked at carefully enough to discover something true. And maybe that someone is you. Not today, not even this year, but somewhere in the quiet spaces of your life, in the mornings before the day begins, in the evenings when the noise has faded, there will be a question, a small one maybe, something you have always wondered about, something you have noticed but never quite understood. And if you let yourself follow it, who knows where it might lead? For now, though, let your body be heavy. Feel the warmth of the ground beneath you, the warmth of the fire's last light. Breathe in and out. Deeper now, slower. Let your thoughts drift. They do not need to go anywhere. They are like the surface of the sea, moving gently without destination. Deeper and deeper and deeper. More and more. Let the sound of the sea carry you, that ancient rhythm, that patient, tireless breath that has been going on since long before Archimedes sat in his bath, and will go on long after every problem has been solved and every question answered. In and out. In and out. You are safe. You are warm. Balım is beside you. The stars are overhead. And somewhere, 2,000 years away across the dark water, a man is sitting in a bath and noticing something that everyone else has always seen and has never, until this moment, truly looked at. Sleep now, just sleep. Sleep. Side to side, side to side, side to side, deeper and deeper and deeper, more and more, more and more. And the fire breathes, and the sea breathes, and you breathe, and the stars turn slowly overhead, as they have always done and will always do. Sleep, my friend. You have carried enough today. Put it down now. Put it all down. Sleep.